Well, I react to this first because this place where Renee Good was shot and killed is barely 2 miles from where I live. This is my community. I was just there today and seeing people just come together and try to surround this place with love and solidarity. And to think that the president of the United States and Kristi Noem and J.D. Vance are like doubling down on their strategy to try to convince the American people that they cannot believe their lying eyes. And this video today, all it does is tell the tragic story of the shooting of this woman from a new angle. We can see that they are lying when they say that the officer was run over. Clearly, he wasn't run over. And what I think of is, having worked closely with local law enforcement and state law enforcement in my other roles as chief of staff to governors and mayors, you would never be trained to do the things that this officer did. And how poignant, isn't it, to see that police chief from Portland actually behave like you would expect and want law enforcement to behave, with empathy, with compassion, somebody who knows his community, and somebody who knows how to de-escalate situations rather than make them worse, which is what these ICE agents are doing all over the city that I live in.
Senator, the important part of this, I think, for me, and has to be grounded, I think, in a very, very important way, is the investigation itself. That the fact that the federal government is saying only the FBI will investigate that. Well, that's not the way these things have typically worked, have they? When you have something that happens on the streets of a city, the city, possibly the state, depending on the circumstances and situation, also have to play a role here. I'd like a quick listen to the mayor of Minneapolis, Mayor Frey, this morning, talking about the impact of the government's response so far to this shooting.
From the very beginning, they're calling the victim a domestic terrorist. They're calling the actions of the agent involved as some form of defensive posture. We know that they've already determined much of the investigation, and even if they haven't, there is the appearance that there is some conclusion drawn from the very beginning.
And 3 points there are very, very important. The way the president and others have come out of the box talking about the victim as a domestic terrorist, then you have to prove it. Your investigation should prove that. You must have some evidence that we haven't seen to show that. The fact that, this agent was acting in a defensive posture. Well, we've seen the videotape. Doesn't look too defensive. In fact, looks like at some place he put himself in front of the car unnecessarily. That goes against procedure. An investigative point. And then, of course, the idea that the conclusions have already been drawn. As a U.S. senator, as someone, as you said, this happens 2 miles from you. This is your neighborhood. What role and responsibility or leadership do you see yourself taking to make sure that there's an investigation of what happened to one of your constituents?
Well, we started off on what seemed to be maybe a good track, where it was announced that the FBI was going to do this investigation jointly with state investigatory authorities. That's the way we traditionally and typically do it in this state. And then we come to find out that the Trump administration is backing away from that. So the first thing I did was to call the FBI and say, you must reverse this decision. This is a terrible decision. It will undercut any credibility that you have. You don't have any credibility because you've already basically told the world what you think happened here. How can we see this as an investigation without prejudice? And then just last night, Senator Klobuchar and I sent a letter to the Attorney General, again demanding that this be a joint investigation. Now, I want to be clear that the Attorney General of Minnesota and the Hennepin County Attorney are saying that they will do an investigation, which is their full right to do. But we got to be honest, without the information and the evidence that the FBI is collecting, that investigation will be neutered from the very beginning. And my constituents rigged. And that's what it looks like to me, too.
Senator, in addition to the efforts that are happening inside your state, there's also some effort on the part of Senate Democrats to rein in ICE. This just yesterday from Axios. Senator Murphy, the top Democrat in the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees DHS, is also trying to build a coalition of Democrats to insist on some restraints on DHS's authority as a condition of their support for a spending bill for the department, with funding set to lapse January 30th. Your sense of whether or not there is appetite now among your colleagues to put some constraints on DHS?
Well, I certainly have the appetite to do that. And Chris Murphy is a close friend and ally of mine in the Senate. And I agree. I don't know how I could vote for a funding bill for ICE when they are behaving in for the Department of Homeland Security, when so much of what they are doing is illegal, is lawless. And in addition, it is so clear that we need reforms to ICE. Let's just take the one issue of how they are training and preparing officers. Clearly, they are doing this in a way that runs counter to how professional law enforcement is operating. And that is putting my community and communities all over the country at grave risk. I mean, ICE in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, is hurting our public safety. It is in no way advancing public safety. And I mean, they should be gone and they need to be reformed.